Well, there has been mixed reaction to a revelation that government spent 1.4 million rand on a new kitchen, 240,000 rand on fumigation, 53,000 rand on a curtain rail, and 19,000 rand on light bulbs. The expenditure was part of 93 million rand spent on maintaining the mansions occupied by government ministers, deputy ministers and DGs over a period of 2 years. Meanwhile, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Sihle Zikalala, is demanding strong action and an explanation on some of the questionable procurement-related expenditure for the maintenance of houses occupied by public representatives. Now, the Democratic Alliance says it will be submitting a complaint to the Public Protector to investigate what appears to be brazen corruption and tender inflation in the maintenance of ministerial mansions. To get more clarity on this matter, we are joined virtually by Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Sihle Zikalala. Minister, thanks for joining us. Good to have you on the show.
Thanks, and thanks for having us, Liam.
All right. So, Minister, just reading the introduction and listening to the costs of some of these items, they are not justifiable, and I think you do agree with me that they aren't justifiable. Let's talk about what you've done since finding out about this. I know you're doing a probe into this matter. Where are we with this, and what is the next step?
We have assigned a team within the department to conduct an investigation, an internal investigation on the matter. And this the team include people who come from procurement, who have experience in procurement, but also who have experience in legal matters. And we want to establish how come did it happen that the department incur such cost. We believe that if these costs are in fact as reflected, it means these tenders or contracts were inflated, and we believe that we should take serious action on those who were involved, both in terms of disciplinary actions, but also criminal charges should be laid on those who were involved.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at the procurement issues on this, I mean, how does this get through the system? How is it that a service provider, because I know you have subsequently come through and sort of said that the service providers are to blame, but let's go back to how the chain of events actually unfolds. If you are putting out a quote and I write a quote saying that in order to fix your curtain rail, it's going to cost 54,000 rand, I submit that quote. Someone needs to accept it. So I can take a chance as a service provider, but surely I don't get that tender if it is a ridiculous amount like we're seeing here.
Yes, it will not be just the service provider alone. It is clear that there were also officials who might have been involved here, because the service provider does not appoint herself or himself to do work. The service provider is appointed by the department, and that's why we are saying those who were involved on the side of the department must then face music, and there must be consequence management in this regard. This happens between 2019 and 2021, and it must be clear that it happened not under us as the minister who have just joined, but we will be following it, and we are not going to leave it unattended because we don't want such things to happen. We are serious about spending efficiently in a manner that takes into cognizance that we are faced with a budget constraint. But besides budget constraint, we should ensure that any allocation is done proper and not in a wasteful manner.
But, Minister, this is really bringing up, and I suppose it doesn't really matter who. I mean, I know that at the time, I know that the previous minister was Minister DeLille that was in this particular portfolio. You have just taken it over, and as you say, this was not happening during your time because you're new to this portfolio. But this is nothing new. This is not the first time we are reporting on these inflated and exorbitant prices that are being paid in order to do this. I mean, we can go back to the days when when we saw the upgrades happening at former President Jacob Zuma's house. And the same reason was also given of inflated prices and service providers just inflating their prices. But of course, there's a chain of events that happen along the line that I and the rest of the people watching, that are taxpayers, are responsible for. So this isn't new. It's something that has just been accepted, but we can't accept this anymore. How are you going to sort this out?
If there is no consequence management, if such things happen and nothing is done, they will continue to happen and they will recur again and again. And that's why we are saying we're going to take decisive actions and ensure that those who were involved are held accountable, because we must set a standard that we cannot, as a society and government, tolerate such things. Because if you don't act decisively, they will then continue to happen as if it is a norm. And we cannot live with that situation whilst the government funds are spent in such a manner.
Yeah. I just want to draw your attention, if you perhaps maybe have or haven't seen it. It is a News 24 article that is in front of me at the moment. And this is your Deputy Minister's response. Your Deputy in your same department, Bernice Swart. You know, when she heard or when she was asked about the 93 million that was spent on executive officials' residences, her response was she called on South Africans to restore Ubuntu. But let me go further into what she has to say, and perhaps you'd like to respond to it. The Deputy was saying that the department is the custodian of the prestige accommodation. They have to provide movable assets like furniture to their clients, which are the president, the deputy president, ministers and deputy ministers, and went on to say, we carry the mandate to ensure that all clients occupying these residences are housed safely and that their needs are addressed. And she said, you know, we must find Ubuntu in ourselves to end patriarchy and sexism and create a South Africa that does not leave the vulnerable behind. That was to quote her response. It's funny that you both serve in the same department, because she's saying that this is what needs to be done. It's their job, and they need to look after the needs of these kind of officials that fall under this prestige account. What's your response to an answer like this?
No, I think maybe it is not quoted in proper context. I don't think in this regard she was defending wrongdoing. Wrongdoing must be dealt with as it is, but we must provide services to all our client departments as expected. Prestige is one unit within the department. Amongst many branches that are there, it must function in a manner that provides care and support to our client department, but it must also be mindful of the fact that we are managing resources that belongs to the state, and such resources must be managed effectively and efficiently and must be used in a manner that does not allow any element of corruption.
So let's look at this, Minister. We're in, and I think you agree with me, we're in an economic crisis. Would you agree with me? Infrastructure.
Yes, the country and the world is facing economic crisis.
Indeed. When we look at hospitals, the infrastructure is not in a good state at the moment. When we look at our hospitals here in South Africa, our schools in South Africa are facing huge problems when it comes to infrastructure. Now, we have got government officials that are they should be called servants, government servants, basically, that are here to serve the will of the people. They're living in mansions that are occupied, as we say, by these government ministers and deputy ministers. Why can't these houses and properties be sold off and ministers buy or rent their own houses? Why do we need to pay for them to stay in ultimate luxury, and there's an entire portfolio that has to suit their needs, whether it be furniture, pools, kitchens, paying astronomical amounts to keep them happy when the majority of South Africans are anything but happy right now?
We're in a process of reviewing the whole issue of the handbook and the benefits, including ministerial residence. We are in a process of looking on that. But firstly, we must be mindful that ministers have their own residence. They come from various parts of our country, different provinces, and they have to work either in Pretoria or Cape Town. And in that space or in those areas, they must then be accommodated. But what we appreciate is that the manner or the current system is not cost effective. So we must then review it, which we have started doing, and we will be maybe in the next 3 months be able to present a comprehensive plan that will be dealing with the issue of residential houses for ministers and deputy ministers, as well as MPs.
Yeah.
It must not be like it's only ministers. Even MPs are accommodated in various villages here in Cape Town.
So, I mean, when we look at the amount of money that is being spent on these large ministerial houses, when you talk about in Pretoria and in Cape Town, this is costing, the property is valued at about R1 billion. There are 97 state-owned houses valued at just under R1 billion. You know, one can only think about what can be achieved with that R1 billion. I mean, particularly in a portfolio like yours, where we're seeing things collapsing in front of our eyes, and yet we are worrying about where a minister or a deputy minister sleeps. They could sleep in a hotel. You can hire them a hotel room. You know, these are kind of things, and they don't have to be 5-star hotel rooms. These are the way that things are. You know, the reality is, and what people complain about, is that it feels like government ministers and individuals are so separated from what the normal South African experience is. Load shedding, for instance, 50 million rand spent on protecting ministers from load shedding, while the rest of us, including hospitals, suffer under stage 6 load shedding. I mean, this doesn't make sense, Minister. You must agree with us.
Yeah, when you speak like ministers don't suffer from load shedding. You are talking to me right now. Where I am, there is load shedding, and that's why I'm using this light that is on the side to prove that there is load shedding here, and that load shedding is affecting all of us. It is not true that wherever ministers are located, there is no load shedding. Even where I am in Cape Town, I'm in the ministerial house, and there is load shedding, and I'm affected by it, as I can show you now. Now, this means that
so, Minister, you don't have,
are living.
May I confirm, you don't have a generator or a battery backup system? You've got nothing. You're staying in a ministerial house with nothing.
Yes, in here, they are only giving ministerial support on electricity only in Pretoria, not in Cape Town. And as I'm here in Cape Town for the budget vote, there is load shedding now, and it is affecting me. And I'm improvising as I'm talking to you, and that's what we must understand. It's not true that these things that are reported, they are as they are in some cases.
Yeah. All right, Minister, unfortunately, I've got to leave it there because we've got to get into the news. But I know you are doing the budget vote. You're in Cape Town, as you said. It's going to be happening today. And this is an issue you will be addressing. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say about this, as well as other issues as well. Minister, thank you. Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Sihle Zikalala speaking about 93 million rand that is spent on maintaining the mansions that are occupied by government.